He stood not to win, but to be remembered. At the narrow pass of Thermopylae, with 300 warriors at his side, Leonidas faced the greatest empire on earth. The ground trembled, the sky darkened with arrows, and still he did not retreat, because sometimes dying is the loudest way to live. Leonidas was never meant to rule. Born the third son of King Anaxandridas II, he was the spare, the overlooked, the ordinary. But Sparta did not raise princes, it forged warriors. At age 7, he was taken from his mother's arms and thrown into the agoge, a brutal education system not of books, but of blood and survival. He slept under frozen skies, stole food to survive, and was beaten for speaking out of turn. There were no excuses, only consequences. He learned to lead by following, to strike by waiting, to suffer in silence. What others might call trauma, Sparta called preparation. And when his older brothers died, Leonidas did not rise because of ambition. He rose because there was no one else left. He wore the red cloak of a Spartan, not as a badge of pride, but as a burden of responsibility. He trained relentlessly, ran alongside his warriors, and shared their meals and their pain. Leonidas was not above his people, he was among them. Even before he was king, his presence inspired reverence, his silence discipline, his gaze a challenge. In war councils he said little, but when he spoke, all listened. His enemies underestimated him, not because he lacked strength, but because he lacked ego. He was a king who carried no throne, only duty. He found wisdom in simplicity and conviction in sacrifice. He believed a leader must bleed with his people, not just for them. This was not taught, it was lived. In the east, a storm of gold and blood began to stir. Xerxes, king of kings, heir to Darius, master of millions. He ruled not with reason, but with awe. His army was a continent, his navy a floating city. He sent messengers to every Greek city-state with one demand: earth and water, symbols of submission. Some cities obeyed, others argued, but Leonidas watched. He saw the seeds of chaos, the weakness of division. Themistocles of Athens urged for naval defense. Corinth hesitated. Thebes leaned toward surrender. Leonidas, grounded in Spartan simplicity, understood something they didn't. This war wasn't just for land. It was for the memory of freedom. Then came the oracle's decree, delivered in riddles and smoke. Either Sparta will mourn a dead king, or all of Greece will burn. Leonidas did not argue. He understood fate. He selected 300 warriors, not the strongest, not the most famous, fathers, craftsmen, men with children, so that their bloodlines would survive even if their bodies did not. Each of them handpicked, not for muscle but for loyalty. They marched north to Thermopylae, the gates of fire, a narrow pass between mountain and sea, a natural chokehold, a graveyard waiting to be written. As they traveled, villagers watched in silence. Mothers clutched their children. Old men saluted without words. Every step forward was a step toward death, but also toward immortality. They weren't simply warriors. They were a wall against oblivion. They passed ancient landmarks and battlefields. Leonidas reminded them of the warriors who came before, who had fought and fallen for their homeland. He reminded them they were writing the next chapter in Greece's story, with blood, sweat, and bone. Some nights they sang old hymns beneath the stars. Others they sharpened blades in silence, hearts heavy with destiny. They knew that the road ahead offered no glory, only sacrifice. One soldier, a carpenter by trade, whispered to another, "If we die here, let them say we stood." Leonidas overheard. He nodded. "And stood well," he said quietly. On the first day, Persia surged forward, thousands upon thousands colliding with Spartan discipline. Shield to shield, step by step, the Persians were slaughtered by the hundreds. The Spartan wall did not bend. It sang with resolve. On the second day, Xerxes unleashed the immortals, his elite warriors, but immortality was a lie. They fell like mortals. Still, the Spartans fought without rest, without food. Their hands blistered, their arms burned, but their will unshaken. Then came the night. Cold winds whispered through the rocks. Leonidas sat with his men, offering no false hope, only honor. He spoke of their ancestors, of glory earned, not granted. He reminded them that history only remembers those who defy it. He told them, "We do not fight for Sparta alone. We fight for all of Greece, for our children, for a future free of chains." On the third day, betrayal. A Greek named Epheltes, deformed and bitter, revealed a hidden path around the cliffs. The Persians flanked the pass. The trap was closing. Leonidas dismissed most of the Greek allies. He stayed, his 300 stayed. They knew what it meant. They sharpened their blades, whispered final words to each other, and stood in the morning mist, not as men, but as memory. They fought with broken spears, with fists and teeth, with fire in their eyes. The narrow pass became a furnace of blood and courage. They fought not just for their people, but for the future, knowing they would never see it. The Spartans fought beside the Thespians who refused to leave. Together they became legends. Each man a wall, each strikes a message. Leonidas did not die in fear. He knelt, proud, defiant, facing the enemy. His body fell, but his message rose. When the dust settled, 300 lay still, but their sacrifice echoed. Their stand gave Athens time to prepare, gave Greece time to unite, and gave the world a symbol of what it means to resist. Leonidas became more than a king. He became an idea, a reminder that one man can hold back an empire. He proved that legacy is not written in marble but in blood. He taught that courage is not the absence of death but the presence of meaning. In our world where leaders seek comfort and clamor for praise, Leonidas sought sacrifice. He didn't wear his crown like a jewel, he wore it like a weight, and when the time came, he laid it down without regret, because some kings rule by surviving, others by choosing to die. We remember Leonidas not just for how he died, but for what he chose to protect: unity, freedom, and dignity. In choosing death, he gave birth to resistance. He taught future generations that even when defeat is certain, valor can still triumph. So the next time you feel small against the tide, remember Thermopylae. Remember the king who knelt, not to surrender, but to rise in legend. Remember that courage is not about numbers, weapons, or certainty. It is the decision to stand when standing means dying. History remembers the worthy, the rest become dust. Subscribe. More untold legends await.